What do Tarkov's lowest recoil weapons actually look like in 2026 after all of the attachment changes? Today we'll be testing 3 full auto weapons with the lowest recoil possible, starting with the lowest in the entire game, which is the MPX. Alright, so first things first, we're going to go and buy ourselves an MPX. The one for Peacekeeper is probably the safest, so we're just going to get that because people love removing parts and random stuff like that. We're going to go and modify this. Now, you will notice pretty quickly that the original build is already quite low recoil. This has 37 vertical, which is lower than most guns in general, even after they're modded. So for example, you can't even get a 5.56 gun down to this level of recoil. But we're going to make it the lowest that you possibly can, so it's quickly whipped through the build. The first most important part is the barrel. This kind of dictates a lot of things about the gun. So this is the 14-inch. We'll stick that on here. And then we've got a choice on the handguards. We either can go with the MPX Midwest, or we can go with the Lancer, this one, the OEM Lancer 14-inch M-Lock handguard. And the reason for this is that this one is slightly better on ergo by 1, but if you go with this, then you can't put on the best in-slot suppressor. So I'll just show you this to begin with. So we'll go Lancer, and then if you look in here, you then can't put on the Osprey, which gives you the most recoil reduction. So if you want to go loud, you can use the TACOM, which is the same recoil reduction as the Osprey. You can stick that on here. If you want to go suppressed, then you can go back to the Midwest 14, lose 1 ergo, and then put the Osprey on instead. So it's really up to you. I will just say that having the suppressor on burns durability on this gun like absolute crazy, especially if you're using PvP rounds, which you probably should be, because all the rounds for 9mm kind of suck, but PvP is probably the best one. Then you've got the Gunfighter M-Lock. This is one of the various foregrips that gives you the most recoil reduction at -3.5 these days, with -2 ergo, and it's relatively cheap. So we'll just slap that right on here. Pistol grips are kind of similar. They're all bucketed into the same groups these days. So what you want is one that, the Growl used to be the best, but this is -1.5 recoil and +5 ergonomics. There's loads of different grips that do this now, and I think the cheapest one is this guy, the Hera Arms HG15. Not one I've ever used in the past, but as you can see, they are basically the same, and it's actually slightly lighter too. So we're going to put that on. Now, in terms of stocks, usually you wouldn't do this, but for the min recoil build, we're going to add on the SIG FSKA, the folding knuckle stock adapter. And onto that, we're going to use the new min recoil combo, which is the ERE, at least for kind of Western weapons. And then on top of that, we're going to add the PRS Gen 3. You can add the black one or the grey one. The PRS Gen 2 is very, very similar. It's 24 versus 23.5. So if you run out of these or they're expensive or something, you can technically use this for half a recoil point less. But we're going to put the black one on just to minimize that recoil. So now you can see we actually get to the lowest value possible, which is 27. This is the lowest value in the game for full auto weapons. So you can't get lower than this. After that, you're going to do the usual stuff: flashlights, lasers, optics, anything like that. So we're going to put on here maybe an EXPS, and on the back we're going to do Defiance rear sight and Defiance front. These aren't as good as they used to be. They only give half a point each now, but that's +1 ergo for free. You can take the MPX charging handle and change it to this one, the Geisley SCH charging, for 1 more ergo as well. And then, yeah, we're just going to add a flashlight or something on the side, whichever side you want to put it on. I always find it difficult to figure out exactly where it's going to go. You can just pick any of them really, and then underneath that, we will then add, wherever the thing's gone, here it is, we're going to add the WMX200. That's my favorite, at least it's the one that I always use. It has good throw, it's quite a tight beam, but it has really easy modes, which means you can always keep your point fire bonus because you can still put it in IR mode and have it work like that. So rather than turning the light on and off, you can just change the mode from IR to actual flashlight. And so it's always on, so you always get a point fire bonus so that your un-ADS'd shooting is more accurate than it would be without one. So this is basically the build. This is what we get to. This is 30.4 ergonomics and 27 vertical recoil. I'm a bit nervous about using this with 30.4 ergo because I feel like with an SMG, especially in 9mm with such weak ammo, you kind of need to be getting the first shots off, or at least on par with other people. And I feel like this is going to be quite hard to use. To counter this a little bit, we are going to be able to spray a lot of bullets because you can choose a couple of different magazines. This one here is the 50 round drum. This is -10 ergo. It's better than it used to be, but I don't know if this is necessarily that great on the MPX because you can also use this, which is the 41 rounder, and this also fits into a 2x1 slot, which is cool, and you only lose 9 rounds for the benefit of gaining 8 ergonomics. So given that this thing is so ergonomically challenged already, I probably would just go with the 41 rounders. That's what I did anyway, and it seemed to be sufficient. To be honest, by the time I got to the end of the magazine, I was either dead or they were dead. So there really is not really much advantage going up to the 50s, I don't think. They're a bit cheaper as well. So with the build set, we'll have a quick look at how it performed a little bit, and then we will move on to the SCAR L after for the lowest 5.56 rifle in the game. Where was that scav? I actually need to kill scavs. Just two. Okay. Let's see. Oh, oh, oh. Oh. Ah. Did you get in the BTO? I might have. Okay, well, apparently that doesn't want to... Oh my god, what is going on with me? I literally can't kill this guy. Half unfortunately, we only found scavs during our time with the MPX, but the positive side is that I probably would have died if I'd met any PMCs. Not really my kind of gun. With the low ergo, makes it quite difficult. So we jumped into Icebreaker to see how it worked in closer quarters with those AI instead. That's the problem with the MPX, isn't it? They get you pew someone in the back of the head and they don't die. Yes. Up from down here before. God, the MPX is like, just the fact that it like bounces off their head is like so tough. So tough for that. Got up the MPX for the spear since you're almost out of ammo. I could do. I mean, I could just take some of this ammo. It's pretty bad. But what's the spear on Knight? Isn't his like really low Dura? What Dura is the spear? 65? It's pretty ropey. I think I'd rather use... Well, that one's also pretty low Dura as well. Maybe do just use the spear. I don't know. Oops, why did I throw that? I'm not sure what I threw then. It's fine. It's fine. I need to put... Wait, I don't have a... Ooh, that's not good. I don't have a way to attach a flashlight to this gun. Unless maybe I could take the purse and put it... Oh no, but the purse isn't a flashlight. Okay, well let's go for... Because I think I can get this onto this guy, maybe? Yeah. So we're going to end up using the AK. Which is not really what I wanted. But we're just going to have to do it. We're just going to have to do it. Overall, as you can see, I ended up ditching the MPX for a spear, and then I ended up going into the engine room using the AK instead because of the 60 random mags. The problem is, as I said in my getting ready for Icebreaker video, when you're fighting against players with class 4 helmets, and especially those with 40 head HP, it's actually quite unlikely that you're going to get through and get a headshot straight away against a class 4 helmet using even PvP, the top round for 9mm. So for me, this gun was not it, and we're going to move on to our next one. Next, we have the lowest recoil 5.56 weapon in the entire game, which is the SCAR L. So the SCAR L is a little bit fiddly to make, partly because if you want to get the best value for it, you have to choose the right line, because there's two lines in here, one FDE and one which is black. FDE is typically either the shortest barrel version, which is this guy, where you can see here, this one has the 10-inch barrel on it, and then you've got the other one there, which has the 14-inch barrel. Neither of those are the ones we want for the minimum recoil. So you want to go and pick a black SCAR. The problem with this is that you have to buy them from Peacekeeper as a full thing, or they're quite expensive from players. Now, you can alternatively go and choose the lower and build it up from there, but that can be quite expensive as well. So what I would do is I would look in here, and if you've got one like this, like 90k, I'd probably buy that as a good start, because weirdly, the way that the Scar has changed in all of the various reworks is that a lot of the parts that you get on this already are fairly good. So this is probably cost effective enough, because the barrel is one of the most expensive pieces if you're either starting from scratch or you buy a totally different gun with a different length barrel to begin with. As you can see here, it's $315, so it ends up being approximately 50% of the cost of the build overall. So we're going to start with this particular build. Now, just noting the stock here, this actually is the lowest recoil combination that you can get for the Scar. This Scar retro stock, it's the one it comes with. If you want to make an actually good build, so we're focusing on like purely low recoil, if you want to make an actually good build, then you go with the VSS 11. You can see the bang for buck there is amazing. It's 1 higher recoil, so imperceptibly worse, but you get 8 more ergo. So that's what I would use if I was making an actual good weapon. But if you want the minimum recoil that you can physically get, we're going to stay with the Scar Retro. So that means you don't need to change anything. Folding stock, the Retro, the Scar cheek pad, and also the rubber butt pad, this all stays. We're going to use exactly the same grip that we did on the MPX actually, which is the Hero Arms HG15. And then we've already got the barrel in here, so if you haven't got the 18-inch barrel, you'll need to select that at this stage and buy it. Then we're going to take off the Scar side and the lower, and we're going to turn this into one of the other versions. Now, the CASV is the one that is lowest recoil because it doesn't come with any recoil reduction on the handguard, like none of them do anymore. But on the front, you can add this, the CASV Scar handguard extender, and this reduces recoil by 1%. So anything where there's like an extra little piece, sometimes these ones kind of circumvent the no recoil on handguards rule that BSG have put in and allow you to get a little bit extra there. We then put the Ultil 5-inch rail on because we don't have any other choice. And then we're going to add the Gunfighter Mod 3 again. This is the cheapest one that you can get with minus 3.5 recoil. So we'll stick that on here. Now, in terms of what you're going to do with the weapon, for 5.56 it's a bit strange for muzzle brakes because the lowest recoil combination is a loud build, which is probably good, to be honest. And BSG have reworked a lot of these so that now they work much better with muzzle flash and are much closer aligned to a suppressor than they were for general muzzle brakes. Unfortunately, the lowest recoil one is this, the CQB Furfran's muzzle brake. And you put that on and then you put this around it, the CRD, because this gives you an extra minus 3.5 recoil on top of what you got from the CQB in the first place, which was minus 9. So this is already quite good. This is minus 12.5, which I think is quite clearly better than the next one. I think the next best one is going to be this Lantac Dragon, which is minus 11. So you've got 1.5 extra recoil points clear. Now the problem is though, as soon as you put this shroud on, this guy here, this is what causes the muzzle flash. This ends up giving you the old muzzle flash model rather than the new and updated one. We're going to use it, again, because of our slavish approach to minimum recoil. But if you don't want that, then I would go and use the Lantac instead, if you want to make an actually good build that's easier to see. Or just go and use a suppressor. The SDN is the lowest recoil for 5.56. So this gets us to 22.3 of ergonomics and 43 vertical recoil, which is pretty crazy for a 5.56 gun. 43 is about the same as the MP7, so that's kind of nutty. You can change the irons again over to the Defiance here, and you can also change to the Defiance on the front as well, if I can find it in all the menus. There we go. And the only other things that we really want to think about at this point are what magazine we're going to take. If you're doing something like Icebreaker, you can potentially use the uber mega mags like this, the 100 rounder. I actually did use this on one of my Icebreaker runs, or potentially this big boy, or you can use the 60s. But the Mag 100 is pretty funny. It also means that your ergo ends up like literally at 0, so you don't really need to worry about it. And then after that, as usual, you're going to put on the optics, lasers, flashlights, and all of that good stuff. I'm going to put a WMX 200 on the side, and on the top, I think for the Scar, I was using, rather than going for like a red dot version, I actually did bring both, but I often will end up using a Voodoo in a Nightfall. So you could put it into the Geisley mount if you want to get that 1 extra ergo, or maybe it's 2 extra ergo swing, but at 0 ergo, I don't really care, and I just want this for nice low height over bore. So this is a bit of a beast. 43 vertical recoil is really nice, and the fire rate is quite low at 650, which means you don't waste a ton of ammo, but it's good enough for getting headshots on Icebreaker. I actually quite like this. Its only problem with Icebreaker is it's a little bit long, so for general purpose raids, this is nice low recoil and actually does quite well. But if you're going to be playing Icebreaker and you want to play it sensibly, again, I probably would go for a shorter barrel, but genuinely, I think this is not too bad. I know the ergo is super low, but for a min recoil build, this gun is actually pretty fun. So before we move on to our final category of LMGs, let's have a look at how this worked in a few different situations. Someone die there? Oh, God. Lol. Where is this person? Oh, God. Got him eventually. One tap though. So the Scar L feels quite good, but when it comes to actually practically killing PMCs and especially bosses at range, just because of the fact that it's 5.56, you can see why people move up the calibers relatively quickly. The low recoil is nice, and the low fire rate helps with that too. It feels very, very stable. Sometimes people simply just don't die with this gun. So I really enjoyed it. We're going to go and have a look at it in Icebreaker next, where I much preferred it actually to using it out in real raids, and we'll see how it fared. Curious what they do with Icebreaker in season or release. I don't think you'll be able to. Maybe you won't be able to access it from seasonal. I don't know. Ow. Oh, I should probably heal myself first. Let's heal before we go again. Where are we on with this? Are they still here? Okay, there's that guy. There's that guy. Yee shot! ADS speed is painful. It is.
Where is he?
He's a salty sailor, isn't he? He's a salty sea dog. Where's your good coffee? Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Ooh la la. Whoa, 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 whoa. He was hiding round the corner. What a guy. With a shotgun, nonetheless. Actually, well, this shouldn't take very long. We'll do it after we've done the Black Division fight. I'll go and put it in after we've done that. And we might just die instantly, you never know. It's happened before! Yeah, can't be putting to secure that thing, yeah.
They got me. Morphine wearing off. Bring it on.
You can just swing him head tap him, I hope so. Right. Oh man. Okay. Alright, so we're doing on plates and stuff. That front plate's a bit better than my one. Take those two out. I wonder whether I should just take this. Yeah, I probably should just take this wholesale. Then I'm just going to keep these plates in, I think.
Grenade, get out of there. I have the enemy in sight. On it. Dagger 3. Down.
One. God, no.
Lost visual.
Holy crap. That was close.
Enemy frag.
I think that's all of them then. It happens. Swap rig for a new one. Yeah, I guess we could do that. What's this got in it? 5501. Yeah, so we can just like pop all this stuff over here. Take that out. And put that on. That'll do. Cool. Boom. With the engine room cheese, as long as you can get like 4 of them or something. Yeah, how many did we get this time? So yeah, so it's like up to 13. So we've got 12. Yes, it's 12. Sorry, it's 12 plus the boss, and then 9 black div. So finally, onto our last build, which is the lowest recoil LMG in Escape from Tarkov, which is the RPK, which is a fun gun. This is very similar to a lot of the regular 545 AKs, although it's a little bit easier to mod just because of the way it works. Now, the very first thing, this is similar to the Scar in some ways, you need to be looking for this long barrel if you can. It's not as critical if you don't get access to it, to be honest, straight here, because you could buy it relatively cheaply. It's only 18k, as opposed to some of the others in the Western world, which are really expensive, like 50k for a barrel. But you do want it if you can get it. So you want to go from the 15-inch up to the 22-inch barrel to start with. And this makes it a real long boy. And there's no other handguards you can get. Also the same with these rails on the top. So it's relatively easy to make. Now, typically, as a rule, across the entirety of the 545 caliber at this point, when you click into this, the best in slot stuff is going to be the hinge plus the PT1 plus the pad. But unfortunately for the RPK, it doesn't actually take that. So you're either going to go for something like the AK Evo, or you have to go kind of the similar route that we did earlier with the MPX, which is the PRS Gen 3 on the back. You can see here that the AK Evo is clearly the better choice if you want some ergonomics, because it's +1 for +15 ergo. But as we're doing for this particular build, we're going to go for the absolute bare minimum. Now, I used to really like the Tango down grip, but this one got kind of nerfed. So there's a few others that have the -1.5 and +5. Don't use the Tango down. Use the AK Magpul MOE pistol grip. It's the one I usually use on pretty much everything these days. We're going to take off the various iron sights because they don't really do anything for the RPK. And then we're going to add on the muzzle brake. Unfortunately here, because you can't add the waffle suppressor onto this long barrel, you have to use this guy, which is the SRVV MBR jet brake, which is -12.5 recoil, which is pretty good. We just slap that on the barrel and that gives us as low recoil as we can get. From here, we're then going to use the same vertical foregrip as we did previously. There's a reoccurring theme here, the Gunfighter Mod 3, and that actually gets us to our lowest recoil build. We didn't have to do that much. This is 50 recoil on the vertical and 37 ergonomics without putting on anything else. Now you can add on the little charging handle thing here, this guy, the knurled charging handle that gives you 3 ergo back. Obviously we're going to have to add something on. In true LMG style, we're going to be using the 95 round drum, which is only -12 ergo these days, not as bad as it could be. And then we're going to add our flashlights and lasers and some kind of sight, whatever you want to choose for this particular weapon. And that gets us down to 24 ergonomics and 50 recoil. So this is pretty fun. I actually do quite like the RPK. It's only 650 RPM, so it's not the fastest ever. It's not the best gun in the entire world, but the vertical recoil is very controllable and the weapon actually feels quite nice to shoot. This is important. It feels a lot nicer to me than the MPX for some reason. Maybe it's because of just the fire rate and the way that the bullets handle and the speed of the rounds and that kind of thing, but the RPK actually feels pretty good. So this is a very cheap run and gun. This one doesn't cost very much at all. If you go to find parts, it looks like it's a lot at the moment because these RPK mags are coming up at some stupid price, but you can barter them for 2 alkalis. And alkalis are normally pretty cheap. They're actually kind of expensive right now, to be honest. But if you forgo that magazine, then you could potentially use either the 60s, which are probably cheaper than those on the flea market, to be honest, 30k, or you could just use like the 45 rounders or something and have a 3x1 slot in your rig. So that's what's causing most of this cost. So if you just get rid of that for a second, we don't need the handguard because that came with the gun. The actual gun itself is like 65k, and then we don't need the dust cover. We also don't need this buffer tube or this little rail here. So that ends up coming to like 180, something like that. And that, you know, is to be expected when you're buying barrels and lights and all sorts of other things. But as far as kind of min recoil builds go, this is probably one of the cheaper ones that we've seen. So now we've made our final build. Let's go and give it a tested raid to see how it performs. RPD kind of solid so far, I would say.
Teammates down.
Don't die, Giga. Okay, I'm gonna try not to. John Magg's alive. Can I hit my targets? Agreed. Agreed. We'll see what happens when we do. We'll drop bag here. Have I got any nades in it still? I do. Nothing else interesting. So the smoke thing doesn't really work anymore, right? We'll try, the thing is, we can try it to start with, just to see what happens. People are saying that they stay up on the catwalks, but they can't see you anyway.
I have a target. I have an enemy in sight.
Oh god, I can't see.
Clear the site.
Oh man. Okay, so smoke doesn't work at all because you just can't see through it, and they can see through it as soon as it stops with the spray. They can shoot through it, but you actually can't see. So overall, of the three, I do feel like the Scar L was probably my favourite, although the RPK was a close second. With the MPX trailing behind, I just don't think 9mm is really usable at this stage in the wipe. It's not good at killing PMCs, and it's also not good at killing bosses, boss guards, rogues, and raiders, and indeed Black Division as well. Whereas the other two are definitely doable, but they do struggle a little bit simply because of the ammo. Even M855A1 now is not quite as good as it once was, with lots of people using either class 5 or class 6, and you will get shredded by the larger calibers, where I think almost 7.62x39 PP is probably like the bare minimum going into the later stages of a particular wipe, and especially if you want to fight over longer ranges. In close quarters, it can definitely work, but you won't want to use these builds. You'll need to use something with a shorter barrel so that you can move around internally and actually get those quick ADS speeds, which is part of what kills these builds so much, is the low ergo. This is the reason why we build good bang for buck in the first place. So as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.